At first, I was treated as if I didn't exist, which felt incredibly strange. At the very same time, they were reaching out to party members, raising funds based on how Hester had treated me, without even mentioning my name. It was bizarre. And when I say I was treated as a non-person, I mean that in every sense. You would think that if someone was threatening your life, your own party would step up to support you, offer guidance on safety and security, or at the very least, acknowledge your situation with some level of concern. But none of that happened. There was no solidarity, no reassurance, just silence. Are you saying that Keir Starmer himself treated you as a non-person? Yes, that's exactly what happened. Keir Starmer showed no concern, no support. I actually received more backing from SNP leader Stephen Flynn than I did from my own party leader. That, in itself, says a lot. The investigation dragged on for 8 months, far longer than cases involving others who had committed similar offences, which were wrapped up in just a couple of months. It was odd, to say the least. And why do I think that happened? Because Keir Starmer wanted to complete his purge of the left within the Labour Party. When I wrote that ill-advised letter, it gave them the perfect excuse to act against me. They deliberately prolonged the investigation, stalling and stalling, so that when the general election drew near, they could simply remove me from the equation as a Labour candidate. And since I would no longer be part of the Parliamentary Labour Party, they could push me aside without much resistance. Anyone listening to this can see that the plan was to systematically remove everyone aligned with the left. But what they didn't expect was the backlash, especially after the suspension of Diane Abbott. Those close to Keir Starmer seemed completely oblivious to what Diane Abbott represents, not just to the Labour left, but to black people and particularly black women across the country. The way she was treated displayed a shocking lack of awareness, almost as if they had no clue about the firestorm that would follow. It was an astonishing miscalculation, a testament to just how out of touch Keir Starmer and his team really are. And now, let's turn to what Diane Abbott herself had to say about Starmer's government. One of my biggest concerns is the decision to cut the winter fuel allowance. It's particularly difficult for newer colleagues because people vote for Labour with the expectation that the party will support them, only to find out a few weeks later that they're taking money away from pensioners. That kind of betrayal doesn't sit well with anyone. Do you fear being suspended again? No, not at all. They took everything away from me once. If they choose to do it again, that's their decision. Diane Abbott's account of her treatment under Keir Starmer's leadership paints a grim picture of the Labour Party's current direction. The idea that she was treated as a non-person by her own party, despite facing very real threats, is not only shocking but emblematic of Starmer's ruthless, calculated approach to leadership. It has become increasingly clear that under his tenure, loyalty and fundamental human decency have been sacrificed for political convenience. His disregard for Abbott's safety, coupled with an investigation that dragged on unnecessarily, highlights an alarming lack of both empathy and fairness. That someone as senior and historically significant as Diane Abbott found more support from SNP leader Stephen Flynn than from her own party leader speaks volumes about the absence of solidarity and respect at the top of the Labour Party. This situation exposes a much broader agenda, one designed to marginalise and ultimately eliminate the left from within Labour. Abbott's claim that Starmer's team intentionally prolonged the investigation to remove her as a Labour candidate ahead of the general election is not just speculation, it is entirely plausible. It paints a picture of a leader more concerned with consolidating power and reshaping the party in his own image than with fostering unity or standing by long-standing members. This level of political manipulation, especially against one of the first black women ever elected to Parliament, raises serious questions about the values that Labour claims to uphold. If Labour can abandon someone like Abbott so easily, what does that say about its commitment to fairness and justice? Additionally, Abbott's concerns over the winter fuel allowance cuts underscore a disturbing shift in Labour's priorities. Pensioners and working-class voters have historically been the backbone of the Labour Party, yet they are now being pushed aside in favour of political expediency. The idea that people vote Labour only to have their financial security stripped away weeks later is not just a policy blunder, it is a betrayal. It signals a deeper transformation in Labour's identity, one that prioritises optics and political manoeuvring over genuine commitment to social justice. Keir Starmer's leadership appears increasingly hollow. His focus seems to be on optics, control, and internal purges rather than any real vision for the country. His treatment of Diane Abbott underscores a troubling lack of integrity, fairness, and empathy, qualities that any true leader should possess. By alienating key figures and moving away from Labour's core principles, Starmer is not just reshaping the party but eroding the trust of those who have supported it for generations. The Labour Party is drifting further from its roots, leaving many lifelong supporters feeling disillusioned and abandoned. Ultimately, Starmer's tenure is shaping up as a textbook case of political opportunism. His approach, whether in handling Abbott's case or in pushing policies that harm the most vulnerable, suggests that he values power and control above all else. If this is the future of Labour under Keir Starmer, it's no wonder so many people are feeling increasingly detached from the party that once championed their interests. And then there's the issue of the WASPy women, one of the most passionate and sustained campaigns for justice that I can remember. These women fought year in and year out, and they were promised justice. Yet, when the time came, they were left in the cold. The government's excuse? That compensating them would cost too much. The Prime Minister's dismissive response only reinforced the feeling of betrayal that these women have endured. And yet, Keir Starmer's approach wasn't any better. Keir Starmer's response to the WASPy women's plight is yet another glaring example of his failure to connect with ordinary people and their struggles. These women were blindsided by sudden changes to their pensions, with little warning or support. Starmer's reassurances were nothing more than empty platitudes. His justification that taxpayers simply can't afford the compensation shows where his priorities lie: fiscal convenience over moral responsibility. It's an insult to the very people who spent their lives working and contributing to the system, only to be left stranded when they needed help the most. Even worse, Starmer's response relied on weak technicalities and statistics, like his claim that 90% of those affected knew about the change. It was a tone-deaf attempt to sidestep accountability. His refusal to advocate for a just resolution for these women is not just a failure of leadership, it's a betrayal of the very people Labour is supposed to stand for. His vague, non-committal responses reflect a party that has lost its moral compass, offering excuses instead of real solutions. If this is the best Starmer can offer in the face of such clear and pressing injustices, then it's no surprise that so many people feel the Labour Party has abandoned them. For a man who claims he wants to rebuild Britain, he seems far too willing to leave behind those who built it in the first place. Thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts, opinions, or insights, feel free to share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more updates, and join us on Telegram for exclusive content and discussions. Your support truly means a lot.